spiel about him, and obviously the vita and personal statements, those are up on the webpage for folks to pay attention to. But just briefly, Dr. Andrew Rogerson is the Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs at Sonoma State University in California. And Sonoma State is a COPLAC institution. It's the only COPLAC institution in California. Dr. Rogerson received his PhD in microbial ecology from the University of Stirling in Scotland, and has held faculty or research positions in Canada, England, California, South Dakota. Additionally, he served as Dean or Associate Dean at universities in California, West Virginia, and Florida. He's a strong advocate of faculty research, especially research involving students, and his own research has been funded by numerous federal or governmental agencies. We've asked Dr. Rogerson to tell us why he's interested in being president of MSU and to make some additional comments, and then we'll go ahead and open the floor for questions. We'd also, in just a second here, we'll welcome Dr. Andrew Rogerson to Midwestern, but also his fiancée, Janessa Oliger, is here as well, so providing some support. So welcome, both of you, if you can give both of them a welcome in return.
Well, thank you all for being here. This means a lot to me. As you know, I've been asked to make a few introductory comments on why I would like to be your president and why specifically at MSU. Well, the easy answer is, first, I am capable, I believe, of guiding this university through what promises to be a very challenging next decade. And secondly, I am 100% the mission of COPLAC universities. But that's nowhere near long-winded enough to be presidential. Bear with me. Education today then is all about access, opportunity, and success, of course, and affordability, the four areas. And this room knows, because you're in this profession, we're failing in all of these four areas. So as we move through the next decade, we must do something about that. Why should we do that? Well, simply, and again, I'm talking to the choir here, students are our future. Smart people are the most critical resource of any economy, and especially to the rapidly growing knowledge-based economy in which the US future now depends. The challenge for the next president of MSU is that education in America is changing very fast, and to a large degree, we now use the term the new normal to describe this new face of education. Make no mistake, the next 10 years will be nothing like the last decade we've just lived through. This new normal can be summarized by considering the 4 Ds that make up or shape the future of education. And for the less resilient, we could add a 5th D, which would be depression, but that's not in my vocabulary. So let's consider these 4 Ds then that are good talking points for this discussion that we're going to have today. The first is demand. There is a direct relationship between earning potential and the level of education. If a student graduates with less than a high school education, they can expect to make perhaps about $23,000 a year. If you can go to your bachelor's, you might be around $51,000, obviously a huge generalization here. And a graduate degree can perhaps start you around $70,000. It's also been estimated that by the year 2020, 2/3 of all employment will require some form of college education. And of course, there's demand coming from the federal government. President Obama has stated he wants 60% of all American adults to have an associate degree or better by the year 2020, 5 years away. Incredibly tall order. Today, only 41% of adults have this level of education in the US. And we currently rank 16th in the world, well behind Korea, Canada, Japan, and the Russian Federation. And by way of further comparison, in Texas, only 31% of adults have this level of education. So we're going to be required to educate maybe 10 million more adults in the US in the next 5 years. And this isn't trivial, since about 70% of high school students actually graduate with a high school diploma. And for those that go on into higher education, only about half of those who start a bachelor's program at an institution will actually finish within 6 years. So the second D is for demographics. Student demographics are changing fast, and demographers predict that by the year 2040, people of color will be the majority of people in the US. But universities are doing a very poor job of integrating diversity on our campuses. Here in Texas, like everywhere else, there is a noticeable achievement gap. The 6-year graduation rate across all Texan universities for white students is 65%, but it's only 45% for Hispanic students and 36% for African American students. So despite our economy demanding far more highly educated workers, our universities are letting the fastest growing segment of the population lag dramatically behind. So we have to educate more while recognizing the challenges of the achievement gap between our diverse student body, and we have to do this with less money. D, number 3, is decreasing dollars. Over the last 5 years, educational appropriations have decreased significantly in 30 states, with only a few more putting extra money into education, or at least holding firm. And the winners are actually Texas, Oklahoma, and North Dakota. You may not think that's true of Texas, but you really are holding firm relative to the rest of the country. This financial challenge is being taken seriously only by a handful of institutions nationwide. Those asking how to educate more students better and for less money. Most have countered by increasing tuition, and consequently student debt, as we all know, is at an all-time high. It exceeds $1.1 trillion. But we all have to pay attention to this. The Department of Education's scorecard is now up for everyone to see, and it won't be long until state and federal funding will be linked to accountability measures. And the final D is for dynamic competition. Looking over the last 11 years, the number of 4-year universities has increased by about 9.4%, while the number of 4-year online for-profit institutions has increased 158%. These are the Phoenixes, the Kaplans of the world. They have seen enrollments go from 200,000 in the early 90s to well over 2 million students today. They're aggressively targeting the community college students who are lost with 20 or 25 units, with no clear plan for how to go forward with an associate degree. Completion rates are admittedly low and the default rates very high in these institutions, but we would be foolish to ignore this competition. If we do indeed need to educate 10 million more adults in the next 5 years, almost half of them will be adult learners. The distance education works for those students who have families and jobs and commitments. The National Education Statistic predicts that by 2020, 42% of students entering university will be 25 years or older. The good news, because I think it's time I gave you some good news, I can see a lot of depression out there, it's not one of the Ds, is that demand for higher education remains very strong, and 55% of Americans believe that it is necessary for success, and this is up considerably from 31% 10 years ago. Now, while these disruptive influences may seem daunting to some, believe it or not, they excite me. I can rise to the challenge and be the facilitator of all the incredibly good ideas in this room. Together we can affect change and make our students more successful, which is the primary goal of any university. Now, I know it's not easy to imagine change in the academy, particularly since no pursuit other than religion has so successfully resisted change over the centuries than higher education. But it is time. It helps that we know what a valued education looks like. And that's why I'm drawn to MSU. It has never been clearer to me that liberal education is what we need to prepare for an uncertain future in the workplace. No one has a clue what the jobs will demand in 5 years' time. I can sell the need for liberal education to elected officials, potential donors, and to students. The object of education is to prepare the young to educate themselves throughout their lives. And this is what MSU must do. 4 recent surveys by the Association of American Colleges and Universities clearly show us that the majority of employers want to hire college graduates who have broad intellectual competencies, critical and creative thinking skills, the capacity to conduct research and analyze the results, solve problems, have well-developed professional written and oral communication, and the ability to work independently or in teams. A signature experience, in the language of the AACU, is the extra that Thomas Friedman talks about in his recent book, That Used to Be Us. We must give our students something extra in their degrees. There'll be challenges ahead, but I am the most collaborative president you can imagine. I'm inclusive, I'm patient, and can leave my ego at the door. I would work with all in this room. Shared governance is the hallmark of university success. Thank you for being here today. Let's talk. Please, attack that microphone rather than me.
Dr. Rogerson, Renette Halverson, we met at the previous interview. Could you address, other than online courses, which we can all agree are necessary, the new demand of using technology that our students are bringing with them to college with phones and iPads and things? Perhaps you could share with us some of your thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah, I think all universities are struggling with the need to get their instructional technology up to speed with the demands of the incoming students. We're certainly struggling with it at Sonoma State, and it is all about money. But we do well to remember, as we sort of start to think about why we need to focus more on how we educate our students. If we think back to that pioneering work that was published 16 years ago now, that pointed out the simple statement that the function of a university is not instruction, it's about learning. And that's the important piece of instructional technology, because we can do something different in the classroom now to really make learning successful. And that really is technology based. That's the collaborative classrooms we'd like, the movable furniture. You can work in groups, you can work in teams against competing teams at the other end of the room. This is the way that technology is moving forward in terms of helping students learn, and learn all these critical thinking skills that we're hoping our students know. And as, of course, as everyone that's read Academically Adrift, you'll realize that 45% of students are graduating with no improvement in their critical thinking skills, and some are even graduating with less. Scary concept. In that book, however, the good news was graduates from liberal education institutions were doing far better. So we're on the right path, but we need to do something about technology. How we do that? And I know we have huge demands here. I would hope that that's something a donor could get behind. It's a very powerful topic to have with the donor about how we really need to produce better graduates for our future, because they are our future. And to do that correctly in today's world, we're going to have to invest in educational technology and people who can then help the faculty use that technology. At Sonoma State, I'm working incredibly hard, and I think I've got the space now, and that's always the first battle, to put together an experimental classroom which will be the showcase of what you can do with new technology in the classroom. And if that works, we've already got someone in place who will champion that initiative, and it just takes some extra money to find it. But in the meantime, and again, we have these new students coming in, new faculty coming in rather, and we can do minor things for them. One thing that I've invested in the faculty we brought in last year, and we're doing the same with the 19 faculty coming in this year, is quite simply giving them a portable projector, an iPad, and instruction from our instructional designer. And I'm getting out my depth now to know what they can do with it, but I've been to demonstrations after 1 year of these new faculty having these two small tools that total $1,000. And they can go into their classroom and do things totally differently, because the iPad will talk electronically to their projector. The projector doesn't have to go on the front screen anymore. It can go on different walls. They can carry it around and take it to meetings. And I've been to several demonstrations of what these 19 new faculty have managed to do in the course of 1 year with someone that really can teach them slightly different learning tools in a classroom. And that's a huge benefit, to the point that every new faculty member this year will get these two little tools, if you like, and instruction. So, I'm kind of dancing around this one. On one hand, you can do it for $1,000. On the other hand, you can do it for $5 million. And we need to go for the $5 million, but that's going to take donor dollars. But that's what your president's meant to do. So if he's not doing that, we need to tell him fast.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You mentioned just briefly about collaborations and working with other departments. Can you give examples of what you've done and how you've initiated those collaborations at where you are now and other colleges you've worked at?
Sure. I think there's I've read some of the information on your website, so I know that you're really encouraging interdisciplinary type collaborations. And of course, that's the way it must go. It's completely consistent with the liberal arts education model, where we want to give our students exposure to as many subjects as possible. We're doing it through our freshman learning cohorts, where groups of faculty are taking freshmen who are given a prescribed set of courses which make sense to the major they may want to move into. We've developed these freshman learning cohorts for every incoming freshman. You cannot come to Sonoma State unless you tick a box that you're interested in, for instance, the humanities, or you're interested in science. It doesn't lock you into those disciplines, but we want to do something about 1,100 undergraduates who are lost. They don't have a major, they're undeclared. And so these learning cohorts are made up of faculty from different disciplines that are working together to try and excite the students and help them find a major. That's now spilled into sophomore learning cohorts, where, again, the sophomore students we want to retain are now working in an interdisciplinary way with several faculty in all their coursework. The other areas is just to really try and stimulate cross-department, cross-school collaboration on the curriculum. That is something I can just suggest. As an administrator in a university that's very strong in faculty governance and is unionized, there's a limit to how much we can change the curriculum, and that's how it should be. That is the domain of the faculty. But there's a huge interest, particularly with our younger faculty, to do interdisciplinary work now. And we're starting to do that. We're starting to find courses that can count for different majors, so that we're not always having to do the exact same coursework to satisfy the requirements of a major. We also have an incredibly successful program that has been around, and I'm looking to Janessa because she was a graduate of it, called the Hutchins School within our university, that has been in existence probably for 20 years. It is the classic interdisciplinary model. The same instructors over many disciplines within that school give all the undergraduate gen ed, first, second year gen ed, and then do all the interdisciplinary work in the third and fourth years to give students the most incredible interdisciplinary experience. So we're going everywhere from the Hutchins model, which is as interdisciplinary and fabulous as you can get, but is somewhat expensive to run, all the way down to the other level where we're just looking for interdisciplinary collaboration between faculty and an individual course. And huge push from the provost to try and do more.
James Johnson, I'm the Dean of the Gun College of Health Sciences and Human Services. Just wanted to pose to you a question that I'm asked regularly, and that is what you see as the role, the relationship, the fit of professional colleges in a liberal arts university.
Sure. It's a very good question. And we've just actually gone through this exercise because I was involved in rewriting the strategic plan for Sonoma State. We are a member of COPLAC, as you know, Council of Public Liberal Arts Colleges, and we're getting embarrassingly large. We're now up to 9,000 students, which makes us the largest institution in COPLAC, which makes it a little difficult to sell yourself as the liberal arts model university. But we've sort of addressed that by rephrasing how we see the role of liberal arts in what's becoming a comprehensive university, whether we want to actually go that far and call it that, because we have similar professional programs. And so it sounds like we're playing, semantic games here, but we really are couching it that we are a comprehensive university with professional programs, but all of it taught in the liberal arts and sciences tradition. And I know that sounds like we're just playing around with the words, but there was a wonderful article just this week in the New York Times, and it was all about the importance of science students also having a background in the humanities. And you should look that one up, it'll be online. And it's a wonderful piece that really underscores the need for schools, even if they've got a lot of professional programs, to not forget that students must be educated in the broad-based liberal arts tradition. It's very nice. And Steve Jobs, designed Apple, but he had design skills. I mean, it could have looked very different if he didn't have that innovative thought. But there's some good examples in that article. So I think the two are definitely compatible. But we clearly, when you get to a certain size and when your programs become heavy with professional degrees, I think you have to accommodate that change and to be an honest broker.
Hi, Aisha Siddiqui in psychology. I think it's only fair I ask you the same question I asked the previous candidate. Here at Midwestern, we have a strong international student data population. I like to pride this school on having maybe not the most diverse population, but having diversity in there. How do you see yourself supporting that and enhancing that quality at the university?
Sure. Are we talking, so for clarity, is that diversity with international students or diversity in general?
Diversity in general, actually, even though the question is pointed towards international students, but diversity in general.
Yeah. I think the first piece of that is we have to realize that diversity is upon us. As I said in my introductory comments, by the year 2040, it's been estimated that people of color will be more than 50% of the entire population of the US. So diversity within our student body is here, and it's going to continue to come at us. As a university, we have a responsibility to get beyond students feeling comfortable with diversity and have them get into a position where they celebrate it, where they absolutely see the value of a diverse culture. And that is an educational piece of what we must do as a faculty and as a campus. We've kind of moved a long way from, I think his name was Israel Zingwell, who was an immigrant in the 20th century, who was the first person to actually coin the term melting pot. And it was to try and deal with the changing face of America, because back then it was very diverse, full of immigrants, everyone different. And so this term melting pot was used to try and explained that everyone was becoming integrated and assimilated and losing their cultural identities behind. And of course, that hasn't happened, because people will move their cultural identities so far, but they won't fully integrate, and they shouldn't. And I think we now realize that that would be a mistake to continue to think of us as a melting pot, because it's more pluralism, where everyone's identities, everyone's differences should be celebrated, because this is a resource for the country. And so as we educate our students who come here, that must be part of the curriculum, this celebration of everyone's difference, no matter what their ideologies are, or their racial or cultural backgrounds are. And that's going to be the faculty that get involved in that. The university can help as well, because there are several things we can do. The first is we must start bringing diversity into the staff and the faculty. It's happening with the students. We'd like to try harder, and we do try to recruit more underrepresented minority students, but that will happen because the demographic is changing. But we must also make sure that the same is reflected in the diversity of the staff and of the faculty. The second thing we must work hard, really hard to do is to make sure that we have a welcoming campus climate here. And again, it goes further than just having people tolerate or accept diversity. We must get to the point where we absolutely value individual differences. And that is the role of the university. We must do that. It's very depressing to me that we've got a hashtag out there that says Black Lives Matter. It shows we've got a failing in society at this point. It's the universities that can do something about that. So we increase our diversity, we infuse the importance of difference in the curriculum, we make sure we've got a welcoming campus climate. And the final piece that we must do, as we've mentioned already, is we must do something about the degree attainment rate. It is just not right that students of colour are not graduating at the same rate as white students. And that's going to take work, and it can be done. I can point to 20 universities in America that have no attainment gap, none whatsoever. And they've done it by, one, having a strong institutional commitment to that very question, getting rid of that attainment gap. The second thing they do it is called data-driven decisions. They do something, they use data to say, is this working? Yes. Is it working? No. And they either keep it or eliminate it. You've got to have data-driven decisions. The third piece of it is you must have better advising to help those students. Everyone thinks we're doing a wonderful job of giving roadmaps to students to help guide them through their programs. It's not true. As you look around, students are lost. They're going to their friends in the dorm for advising. It's horrendous. Usually it's bad advice. We must do more with advising to keep those students on track, to intervene, to help them, to not lose them. Faculty, you must be involved too. You must be behind this. You must be willing to change the curriculum in ways that will help students who are floundering, who are not used to this, to make them succeed. It could be putting on evening classes. This could be being aware that students can't come to class at 11 o'clock if they're underrepresented and having to work to help cover the cost of college. Maybe it needs weekend classes, maybe it's distance, a different format, maybe it's hybrids. But it's all about faculty involvement in helping to change the institution to focus on that group that we are failing. And finally, it's never give up. I mean, there's a wonderful example of the University of New Mexico. They contacted 2,000 students recently who had left with 90 plus units. No reason on earth those students should have given up. They contacted them, brought 1,000 back to graduate. Never give up. So those are 5 areas that some of the more successful universities have managed to latch on to. So I hope that kind of addressed your question. Sorry, whatever you want. Yes, thank you.
Mark Ferris in mathematics. Just like Northern California and Wichita Falls are different,
Really?
The office. It's my daughter just moved from San Francisco to Odessa, so I'm painfully aware. The office of provost and the office of president are different. And it is a very real sense for us as faculty, that puts you one layer of administration away from us. What steps are you going to take to maintain that relationship with faculty so that you can understand what it's like down in the trenches?
It's a fair comment. I think there were maybe 3 questions in there, but the first was...
Back.
As long as I don't have to put a formula in the board. The first is that it's a legitimate concern, perhaps. Why California to Wichita Falls? That personally doesn't worry me. I've moved around quite a lot, always in terms of career progression. And I've always loved wherever I've landed. And I'm sensing I love Texan people. I came here thinking that Scots were the friendliest people in the world, but I'm maybe reassessing that. So I see good things, and the sun is shining here just like it's sunny in California today. So I mean, that was a little piece of your question, but not the most pertinent one that you were wanting an answer for. You touched on the different role of a provost from a president. Absolutely. The provost, everyone knows here, is the hardest job in the entire university. And the provost is really the person that's linking most with the faculty and staff and the students and making the university work. And a good provost will keep all the big problems away from the president. So I'm absolutely thrilled to see that we've got a very good provost at this university. The president's role is quite different. The president's role is, of course, about vision and being able to make teamwork move the institution forward. But the president's role is mainly about, I hesitate to say control the board because I'm on camera, so I'll say work with the board, it's late. But it's about working with the board and the donors and the community, because that's at the high level of what keeps the university functioning. Having said that, as a mathematician and as a scientist, you will understand the qualities of a scientist, and I say this a little bit tongue-in-cheek, although when I was asked to give a talk once on leadership in the academy, I sort of thought, I'll just describe the qualities of a good scientist, because I have a fairly strong background in research and science. And then I suddenly realized it wasn't quite so tongue-in-cheek. Those same qualities of being ethical, of being a team player, of being a good communicator, of being resilient. I mean, I've occasionally had a paper rejected, and so you have to step up and rewrite it and resubmit it. So resilience is there. Humility is another one. The realization that as a leader I cannot answer everything, so be willing to go find someone who can and then give them the credit. It's a team, we all work together. But I'm coming around to your question, which was, those qualities of being a collaborator and a team player and trusting people and delegating is not something I could lose. I have those qualities, and I would not lose contact with the faculty or the staff. Because I meant it when I said earlier, you are the facilitators of the good ideas of a university. I would be standing up here, arrogant and ready to be thrown out the door if I thought I could come in here and tell everyone what we're going to do. What we're going to do is what you tell me we need to do, and we will make it happen. So keep an eye on me should I be lucky enough to come to this university. If I'm not seen enough and visual enough and at your meetings, come talk to me.
I'm Matthew Cass, I'm the Dean of the College of Education. I have a 2-part question, both of which are about money.
Short answer.
Has a very strong tradition of donors giving money to the university. Dr. Rogerson did an excellent job, and this is on camera, right? Giving money to the university. And I think that there are 2 challenges with that I'd like to address. And one is the donor base within this community is aging, And there is some concern about whether or not that attitude towards donating to the university will continue as those folks move on. And the second, so my question is, how would you deal with that? The second part is, how do you balance the needs of a whole university, the very broad needs of this university, from health sciences, graduate school, fine arts, science, math, radiology, business, versus the individual desires of any particular donor?
No, these are excellent questions. As usual, I'll jump around a little bit before answering your question. I actually love philanthropy. I spend a lot of my time at Sonoma and at previous institutions reaching out to donors. And it's a very satisfying thing to do as an administrator, because you're really just boasting about the wonderful things the university is doing. In other words, the wonderful things everyone in this room is doing. And that is another reason I need to stay connected with the faculty, because I can't tell stories unless I really know what everyone's doing. And that's part of philanthropy, is telling a good story and making a really good case for why we need help and why someone should be willing to donate to something. Takes me to the something piece. Yes, of course, we've got lots of needs, and I would have a shopping list, if you like, of all the major needs that we have on this campus. But remember, donors will give to what they want to give to. They can be steered to some degree when you illuminate them about areas that really would be transformative to the region, transformative to the university, and that could be very appealing. But there'll be other donors want to give to areas that may not be on that list. But of course, their contributions are equally welcome. So I think the role of the president is really to have a very clear understanding of everything this university does well, everything this university could do better if it had additional resources. And that's what your president is meant to do. The piece about the aging donor base, that's happening everywhere. And yet if you look at America, philanthropy has never been stronger. And remember, giving is something that a donor wants to do. It makes them feel good. And it should make them feel good, because they're doing a wonderful benefit to the community, the region, the nation. And I don't think it stops at one generation. And I think your president, your next president, needs to be out there meeting with the up-and-coming generation and not relying solely on the donors who've been so incredibly generous to this university over the years. We're dealing with it in Sonoma. I mean, we're dealing with now the children of the initial donors. And I don't believe it stops. And I think children want to honor the memory of their parents. And it really is all about communication, telling a good story, and engaging individuals who really want to help. And from what I'm hearing at all these meetings I've attended in a mere 24 hours, this is an incredibly generous community. And it would be an honor to work with the people in this community.
Hi, I'm Linda Veazey from Political Science. I was wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about what you would do to enhance MSU's relationship with COPLAC if you were to become the president here. Since you've been, maybe you could talk a little bit more about what you've done at Sonoma State in terms of COPLAC, but also a little bit about what you're thinking of your vision would be here at MSU.
Just as a little correction, I don't think we have to enhance the vision with COPLAC. COPLAC is just a group of 24 or so campuses that all have a shared vision of about what the future of education demands in America. What we want to do is enhance our vision of what we do at MSU in the spirit of COPLAC. And that's more important, because it's my dream if I come here and you can, my 5-year contract would be up after 5 years, and if he hasn't fulfilled the dream, then that dream should not continue. I have this dream that we make this the destination campus for students across Texas. This is the preferred destination campus. And it's a preferred destination campus because in terms of public state schools, we are the only one with a tight focus on the liberal arts and sciences. And that has to be shouted out from every high point in Texas, which is probably about 10 feet high, but it's I'm getting used to the flatness. I ride a motorbike in California and here is very different. But it really, I don't think we've done a good job of publicizing just how important the COPLAC mission of a university is. And I think if we do a better job of that, this is how we will get enrollment up, this is how the students will want to come here, this is how we will get donors wanting to support this is how we'll get elected officials even to recognize the value of a liberal education. Because I've gone to talks recently on this automation that's coming down in America. I mean, I've been sitting watching PowerPoints where car manufacturers are making the entire car with robotics. And there is only one person employed now to look after that entire room. This kind of change is coming upon every aspect of employment in America. And the only way we can counter that is to make sure that we're giving our students an entrepreneurial type education so that they can make their jobs, that they can change within the jobs, that they can continually be lifelong learners. It's a very powerful story. And so your next president needs to really embrace that as a way of making this the destination campus. It can happen. You're unique. You're the only one, unless you can afford Trinity. That's a good model to follow. Not their cost, but they're not hurting for enrollment.
It's me again. Today is National Walkout Day for adjunct faculty, or adjunct instructors. I was curious how you felt about the usage of adjuncts here at the institution and what you would do to improve or increase full-time faculty members.
Many adjuncts are in the audience.
Not me, I'm just a supporter.
It's me just being politically correct. You know, all universities are guilty of not having 100% tenured and tenure-track faculty and relying on adjuncts, which is a good thing. It allows you to have a much broader teaching base, which can give much broader range of subject areas. And so that's a good thing, and some of our adjuncts are absolutely fabulous, and I'm sure you've got incredible adjuncts here. But of course, the real job of the university campus, and remember, we don't have a monopoly anymore in instruction or in certification. Increasingly, students are asking, should I go to a university? Because I don't need to. Google are now hiring people that do some of these online MOOC courses. And if they do certain ones and pass them, that's all Google want. They don't need someone with a computer science degree anymore. So you have to start asking, what is it about a campus that makes it attractive and worthwhile for a student to invest the time and the money to be there? And the answer is faculty. Because of course we can do that extra piece that you can't do anywhere else. And we can never lose that. And it's about the signature experiences in the language of COPLAC that you're trying to infuse into the curriculum. You're trying to give more students undergraduate research, undergraduate creative experiences, more internships with community. That's the extra that we can do on a campus. You can't do that through adjunct base. We also want to do more co-curricular activity on this campus. You're leaning towards a residential campus. Co-curricular is learning outside the classroom. Some would argue most of the learning that goes on in terms of the transformation of that young adult that you take in to the better qualified young adult on the way out is due to co-curricular activities. And at Sonoma State, we're working at the moment to implement a co-curricular curriculum. And that's really coming over positive with the faculty. I'm getting absolutely no pushback from it. And the students have suddenly gone, yes, that's what I want. I want credit on my transcript, not credit that way, but recognition on my transcript that I did leadership at this university, that I did some sort of creative activity by attending performing arts and visual arts performances, that I did a study abroad, and it goes on their transcript, and the list goes on. And I did community service. That needs to be recognized on the transcript, and then you get the buy-in from the students, and you really start to do what a liberal education is meant to do. None of that can be done with adjuncts, because they are hired, quite rightly so, to just teach. We need service and scholarship, and that requires tenured and tenure-track faculty. And we'll do our best to continue to get a tenure-track ratio up there. It's no mistake, we're 60%. 60% full-time faculty and 40% adjuncts. And we used to be 75. So it's a financial challenge, because when the budget squeeze is there, it's always easier to replace instruction with part-time faculty. I would imagine, and the danger of coming to these presentations and after 24 hours making out that you're an expert at MSU and you say entirely the wrong things, but I would imagine that finding qualified adjuncts in Wichita Falls is a challenge. So the good news for people in this room is there's pressure on the administration to continually replace with tenure track. We are somewhat fortunate being 40 miles from San Francisco, so there's a large adjunct base, but not so here.
I'm Paul Guthrie from psychology, but I also serve as the faculty athletics representative. So I'd like to see if you would comment on your views about the role of intercollegiate athletics on the college campus and your experience in dealing with intercollegiate athletics.
Fair comment. I would say it's a trick question. We're in Texas. Wrong answer would be I don't care about athletics. Let me tell you the honest story here, because when I applied for a dean's position at Marshall University in West Virginia, I was on the interview and I said naively, "Do you have a football team?" But anyone that's seen We Are Marshall, you'd understand that. But I got the job. And then I proceeded to learn an awful lot about athletics on American campuses. And I'm actually quite an expert on football, because I went from Marshall to Fresno State, which is even more football and more athletics. I know we're not just talking football here. But on a serious note, I spent a lot of time at two universities that are completely dedicated to the importance of athletics on a campus. And clearly that's the case here. And it's the case in Texas because students, it's the one thing that can connect a student with the campus. I mean, we want to do something about, you've got a somewhat unfortunate transfer out rate. You're losing 33% of your students who are transferring out before they can graduate. And that is a huge problem for your head count. We've got to get your enrollments up, but we've got to do something about your retention rate. So everything we do to improve campus climate is what we have to do. And of course, campus climate and athletics is huge. We've just had a tour of the facilities. They are outstanding. And I hear that the basketball court is full with every game, from not just our students, but the community as well. So the promotion of athletics is important because it helps students connect with the campus. For those that play in the sports, it's huge because it gives them all the qualities we would love them to have: leadership, team sport, resilience, unless you win all the time, I don't know, assuming you lose a few games. And all those attributes that are so important in terms of education outside the classroom. Athletics is huge for linking with the community. As I say, we just toured the basketball court and we're told that there's usually more community members there than actual students. So this is a huge piece of community relations. and it's one that should be valued and celebrated. And of course, it's important for alumni who stay connected with athletics at their parent university. So I celebrate athletics. I actually am really good at football, understanding it, and I would look forward to attending many of the games and helping to build athletic programs, make them better. It's a sense of pride.
I didn't step up too soon.
No, go.
I'm Sarah Gamble. I'm past president of the Alumni Association and current board member. I wish I had a lot of money that I could give to MSU because I love MSU. I do give to the annual fund and modestly, but I wonder if you've had experience or if you have ideas about how you can engage alumni who do not have the funds to be the big donors and get a building or a program named for them, but to include them. I just love this school, and I would love to be utilized in any way that I could be with my modest abilities financially. So have you done that with other universities, and what do you see we could do more here at MSU?
Sure. I've run two very successful programs, I think, of the type you're talking about. I mean, of course, alumni giving, when you do phone-a-thons, is huge, and if someone gives $25, it all adds up, and another $25 and $50, and so it all benefits the university, but it's not very targeted, and it's apart from giving to the general fund, is not what you're meaning. At Fresno and more so at Sonoma State, I've started what I call the Undergraduate Research Fund, and so we ask donors for $1,000. And that money is to stimulate, or not to stimulate, but to cover the cost of one undergraduate research or creative experience. The faculty member controls the money. The student doesn't get any in the stipend. The faculty member doesn't get a stipend, but they get access to $1,000 of money for consumables, should it be a science-based project, for a computer software perhaps, if it's a history project in the library. Or for the students to travel to a conference to present their data. But I am finding that we can't give out the money fast enough. It's coming in so fast about donors who really can get behind changing one life. And that's what they're doing, because those students who spend 6 months or 9 months working with a faculty member in a project, a creative experience, are changed for life. One, they graduate, but their whole life has changed. Most of them think about graduate school and going on. And we make sure that we give the donor an abstract of what the project will be, a bio on the student, and then we give them an invitation to the forum, the undergraduate research forum we run at the end of the year. And I can't tell you how successful it's been. Some corporations will give us $10,000 to fund 10. Other donors will do the 1,000. And apologies if 1,000 is too steep, but you were asking for a specific example. But that's been really, really important and has really increased the number of undergraduate research, in inverted commas, experiences we're giving. We're heading to give every one of our students what's called a signature experience before they graduate. We're about 65% right now, but a lot of it's on the back of these donor funds, which are just crucial. And the faculty, and again, apologies, you will tell me if you like the concept or not, but faculty, where I've been, generally like it, because even if you're not in a funding stream or you're not competitive anymore in NSF grants or whatever, you can take 3 of these students and have $3,000 as a research kitty, if you like, to run your lab or your idea of what you're doing for research or creative activity. So there's huge buy-in from faculty for this. But that's just one example. Does that answer your question?
So in deference to time and the very tight schedule, we have room for one more question in this forum. If anybody has a really hard one to end on.
You'll ask the same question I'm asking.
You think so?
I'm sure. We're one mind right there.
Deborah Garrison, and and thank you so much for being here with us as part of our presidential search. I have several roles. I have the graduate school, and I have also sponsored programs and research, and your answer to the last question is a perfect segue for us. Here at MSU, our faculty, of course, where we've been primarily a teaching university in the past, and our faculty loads tend to be rather heavy, so a 4-4, sometimes a 3-4. But our faculty are tremendously innovative. They have excellent qualities as scholars, of course, and so the university has recently partnered with McAllister and Quinn from Washington, D.C. to help support us, and we did just receive an NSF grant for our STEM program, which will support 2 cohorts of 11 students each in the STEM fields. So my question, really, having given you a little bit of background, is how, because of course undergraduate research is fostered and it is developed in this milieu of faculty, scholarship, and research. And so how should you arrive on our fair campus? Would you propose to foster this faculty, scholarship, and research milieu that generates this tremendous environment for our students?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I guess saying that I just hope that you'll all work at weekends and do this is not going to work. It clearly has to be done on the back of release time. For those faculty that want to do it, let me step back from this. This idea of scholarship with undergraduates is not compulsory. It's not something all faculty will do or want to do, and they shouldn't. I'm actually, and I'm digressing already, but I won't be very long. I'm a great believer in as I look at the tenure track process, that we've really got to get away from this idea you have to be excellent in everything. I did this at Fresno State, and I'm talking about it at Sonoma, that when you come up for tenure or for promotion, you don't need to be excellent in scholarship, teaching, and research. Scholarship, teaching, and service. You should be exceptional in 2 and good in 1 is enough for this provost anyway. And so that takes some of the pressure away that you have to constantly being involved in all 3. And I think that's the first important point. And whether that happens here or not is a moot point. My philosophy is faculty work over hard as it is at the moment, so to demand excellent in all 3 categories seems almost unfair. In terms of for those faculty that want to be involved in scholarship more and use undergraduates or even graduates, then it has to be release time. The university has to find the money to release you from coursework. And we have lots of models across the US of that. You take on X number of students and that covers your 3 course credits for a normal course. And that's how it's done. And incoming faculty, I don't know what the system is here, but we can't give them a full teaching load. We've got to give them at least a year, 2 years of a reduced teaching load to let them start establishing these links. It all costs money, and I could stand up here and make empty promises, but that's where we need to go. And once we get this university on a firm footing in terms of enrollment, it is worrying that your enrollments are dropping. The first priority for whichever president you choose has to be get this university back to 6,500 students. It's a must. Your entire funding stream is dependent on it. But once you get that luxury, once you get there, then you can start making those choices about we want to give release time, we want to promote more signature experiences on the campus. So it's a tough one, and it's one every university is struggling with. But the good news is I'm not expecting you to do in the evenings, unless you want to.
You're here anyway.
Some of you do it, I know that. So thank you all very much. You're a very warm crowd. I appreciate it greatly, and I've enjoyed this thoroughly. So.